It began like any other Family Feud, taping laughter echoing through the Atlanta studio, lights gleaming off the polished stage, and that unmistakable hum of excitement that followed Steve Harvey wherever he went. But no one in that room, not the crew, not the contestants, not even Steve himself, had any idea that what was about to unfold would become one of the most extraordinary moments in television history. It was a Tuesday afternoon in October 2023. The audience, 200 strong, filled the seats with the energy of a live show. The Illington family from Minnesota stood on one side, faces glowing with anticipation. Opposite them, the Thompson family from Florida smiled nervously under the bright studio lights. As always, Steve was in command of the room, charming, quick-witted, and effortlessly in sync with the rhythm of his show. For over a decade, Family Feud had been his stage, and every laugh, every cheer, every fast-timed answer was part of a dance he knew by heart. That's why, when it happened, it felt like a fracture in the rhythm, a note that didn't belong in the music. The question had just been asked. The Illingtons were mid-game, trailing by a few points, but their spirits were high. Emily Illington, a 42-year-old veterinarian from Minneapolis, stood beside her family. Her brother Marcus had just nailed an answer about things people do at the beach, build sandcastles, and the board lit up with the top answer. Cheers erupted. Steve laughed, the lights flashed, and then ring. Not just any sound, a ringtone, crisp, classical, and terribly out of place. The laughter stopped instantly. Every camera froze mid-motion. The sound sliced through the air like a blade. Even Steve's trademark smile faltered. For a moment, no one moved. The rule was, sacred phones must be turned off. Not silent, not vibrate. Off. Every contestant knew it. Every audience member had heard it announced 3 times before filming began. The room filled with an uneasy silence as everyone looked around, searching for the source. Then Emily's face went pale. Her hand instinctively reached toward her jacket pocket, and in that instant, everyone knew. "Oh no," she whispered, fumbling for the phone. Her fingers trembled as she tried to silence it, but in her panic, she tapped the wrong icon. Instead of muting the call, she answered it. The room gasped. Before she could hang up, a voice came through the speaker, faint but cutting through the silence. "Emily Illington, this is Dr. Patterson from Minneapolis General. We need you to know immediately." Steve raised a hand, not in frustration, but in sudden, startling calm. He didn't know why. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was something deeper, something in the doctor's tone. But instead of scolding her, instead of signaling the crew to cut the cameras, he said softly, "Put it on speaker." Emily looked terrified. Her eyes darted to her family, to the crew, to Steve, as if seeking permission to do something that every fiber of her being told her was wrong. But Steve's expression had changed. The showman's grin was gone. What replaced it was something rare concern. With shaking hands, Emily pressed the speaker button. The voice of Dr. Patterson filled the studio, professional, steady, yet carrying the weight of urgency. "Miss Illington, I'm calling about your daughter, Rebecca. There's been a development with her position on the transplant list." The crowd went completely still. Steve's eyes flickered, processing what that might mean. He took a step closer, lowering his microphone but keeping his focus on Emily. "Go ahead, doctor," Emily whispered. No one breathed. The contestants from the other family looked on, motionless. The lights still burned, but the show in every sense had stopped. The audience didn't yet know what this call meant, but Steve did. You don't get a call like that from a hospital unless it changes everything, and within the next few seconds, it would. Dr. Patterson's voice echoed through the silent studio, clear and unwavering, the way doctors speak when they're delivering news that can alter the course of a family's life. "Emily, we found a match. It's perfect 6 out of 6 HLA markers. The donor is here, and we need Rebecca in Minneapolis within the next 4 hours for preoperative preparation." Emily froze. For a second, it seemed like the air had been sucked out of the room. Her mother covered her mouth in disbelief. Her brother whispered, "Oh my God." Even the camera operators, trained to keep composure through chaos, stood still. Steve Harvey, still beside her, instinctively reached out, steadying Emily as her knees gave way. He had seen countless reactions on his show: laughter, shock, joy. But this was different. This was real, raw. A mother hearing that her child's life might finally be saved. "We're in Atlanta," Emily stammered, barely finding her voice. I don't know if we can make it in time." "Doctor," Patterson replied calmly, unaware of where she stood or who stood beside her. "Then we need to move quickly. The window is narrow. If we miss it, we'll lose the organ." Steve's eyes darted to his producers, panic in their faces, confusion in the crew. The show had stopped. The audience wasn't sure whether to clap, cry, or stay silent. And then, in one of those moments that separate ordinary people from legends, Steve Harvey made a decision. He took the phone from Emily's trembling hands and lifted it to his ear. "Dr. Patterson, this is Steve Harvey," he said. "I'm here with Emily. Tell me exactly what needs to happen to save her daughter." The doctor paused, startled, then quickly continued. "Mr. Harvey, we need Rebecca at Minneapolis General within 4 hours. She must begin pre-op tonight. The donor kidney's viability decreases after that window." Steve looked at his watch, then at Emily, then at his audience, 200 people, silent, holding their breath. He muttered, almost to himself, "A commercial flight won't make it." He pulled out his phone. The cameras kept rolling. The producers didn't dare stop them. They all knew they were witnessing something that wasn't part of the script, but maybe something far greater. "Marcus," Steve said into his phone, pacing toward the side of the stage. "It's Steve. I need the jet. Now. Atlanta to Minneapolis. Medical emergency. I don't care what it costs, just get it ready. Fulton County Airport. 15 minutes. We'll be there." Emily's mouth fell open. "Mr. Harvey, I can't." "You can't." Steve interrupted gently but firmly, the way a father would calm a frightened child. "Emily, listen to me. There are moments in life when rules don't matter. This is one of those moments. Your daughter needs you. We're going to make sure you get there." The crowd silent just moments before erupted into applause. Not loud, not celebratory, but steady. Emotional, human. The kind of applause that carries gratitude, not excitement. Steve turned to face the camera, still holding the phone in one hand. His voice shook, but his words carried the weight of something larger than television. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to do something we've never done in the history of Family Feud. We're stopping this game. Because right now, this family just got the greatest prize anyone could ever receive, a second chance at life for their daughter." He paused, scanning the faces before him, some crying, some praying silently in the audience. "But we're not done yet," he continued. "Before they go, we're going to send something with them: our love, our prayers, and a message to that little girl." He turned to Emily, whose tears were now flowing freely. "We're going to film something for Rebecca from everyone here. Because when she watches this, I want her to know she wasn't alone." Behind the cameras, the crew scrambled, lights adjusted, microphones shifted. But for once, Family Feud wasn't entertainment, it was humanity in motion. And for Steve Harvey, this wasn't just another episode. It was a calling. The studio, once filled with laughter and competition, had transformed into something sacred. A place where strangers became family, and a game show turned into a rescue mission. Steve Harvey stood at the center of it all. No cue cards, no rehearsed lines, no teleprompter. Just a man, moved by instinct and faith, trying to make sure a mother reached her daughter in time. The production team moved with urgency, but quiet respect. Someone fetched water for Emily, another grabbed her family's belongings. Runners coordinated with the car service. And within minutes, Family Feud, the show built on speed, humor, and timing, became a race against a far more important clock. "Emily," Steve said softly, still holding her trembling hand, "you're gonna get there. Don't you worry. You just focus on your little girl. We've got the rest handled." Her brother Marcus, still processing the magnitude of it all, looked at Steve and whispered, "You don't have to do this." Steve turned to him, his expression serious but kind. "Yes, I do. Because if this was my daughter, I'd want somebody to do the same for me." Then, he turned back to the audience, hundreds of eyes locked on him. "You all see what just happened here?" he said, his voice breaking the silence. "That's what family means. It's not just the people you share blood with, it's anyone who steps up when life gets real." The crowd responded with a wave of applause, soft at first, then growing louder, until the entire studio was on its feet. And then, something unexpected happened. The other family, the Thompsons, who had come all the way from Florida, stepped forward. Their patriarch, Bill Thompson, a white-tanned man with salt and pepper short hair, around 55, tall and broad-shouldered, with a kind square face and light blue eyes, wearing a light blue shirt, gray khaki pants, and brown leather shoes, walked toward Steve and the Illingtons. "Steve," he said, "we forfeit. The Illingtons win. They need to leave with some good news today." The studio gasped. Emily covered her mouth, overwhelmed. Steve blinked hard, visibly moved. "You sure about that?" Bill nodded. "No prize matters more than what they're fighting for." Steve took a deep breath. He was a man who had seen plenty of television moments, but this was different. "That's what I'm talking about," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "That's humanity right there. That's the kind of win no scoreboard can measure." He turned to the cameras once again. "Ladies and gentlemen, this isn't about the game anymore. This is about grace, about compassion, about what happens when people put love first." Emily, still crying, turned to the Thompsons. "I don't know how to thank you," she said, her voice cracking. Bill's wife, a pale-skinned woman around 52 with light blonde, softly curled shoulder-length hair, a gentle face, and a kind smile, wearing a dark blue dress and white cardigan, stepped forward, hugging her tightly. "Just go get your baby," she whispered. The applause that followed wasn't for a game show victory. It was for something deeper, something unplanned, unscripted, and unforgettable. Within minutes, Steve's team confirmed that the private jet was ready at Fulton County Airport. A car was waiting just outside the studio. The crew guided the Illington family toward the exit, their faces a mix of fear and hope. But before they left, Steve called out, "Hold up!" He motioned for the cameras to roll one last time. "Emily," he said gently, "when you get to that hospital, you tell Rebecca this. She's got a Family Feud family now, 200 people in this room praying for her, and millions more who are about to see this and send her their love." Emily hugged him, unable to form words. Her tears fell onto his suit jacket. Her mother hugged him next, then Marcus, then her teenage son. The Thompsons joined in, and for one surreal moment, the entire stage contestants, audience, and crew became one enormous embrace. Steve's voice was soft but firm when he finally spoke again. Go get your daughter her kidney." As the doors closed behind them, the audience stood in silence, not applause this time, but reverence. Some people prayed, some cried, some just held hands. Steve turned to the cameras, eyes glistening. "In all my years of hosting this show," he said quietly, "I've seen families win cars, money, trips, and trophies. But today I saw something you can't put a price on." He looked straight into the lens. That phone wasn't supposed to ring. But maybe it was meant to. The following hours blurred into motion, a heartbeat measured not by seconds, but by hope. Within 20 minutes, Steve's friend's private jet was fueled and ready at Fulton County Airport. The Illington family raced through Atlanta traffic, escorted by studio staff who refused to leave their side. As they boarded the plane, Steve stood on the runway, coat fluttering in the wind, watching the aircraft lift into the dusky orange sky. A man known for his humor and quick wit was silent, now humbled by the realization that he had just witnessed something divine. Inside the studio, production had stopped completely. The set lights dimmed. Crew members wiped tears. Audience members sat in stunned reverence, whispering prayers for a girl they'd never met. The energy that once powered laughter had transformed into something quieter, collective compassion. That night, as the cameras cooled and the studio emptied, Steve stayed behind. His phone buzzed every few minutes with updates from the Family Feud team monitoring the situation. At 6:47 a.m., The message finally came. Surgery has begun. Organ viable. Rebecca is stable. Doctors optimistic. Steve closed his eyes and exhaled, whispering a soft, "Thank you," to no one, in particular. Maybe to God, maybe to fate, maybe to that mysterious timing that had made a forbidden phone ring at the exact right moment. 6 weeks later, the episode aired. For the first time in Family Feud history, the network made the decision to broadcast an episode completely unedited. They kept everything: the phone call, Steve's reaction, the moment the families embraced, the words that silenced a crowd. At the end, they added a simple update on screen. Rebecca Illington's surgery was successful. She is recovering well. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours, clips of the episode went viral across social media. News outlets replayed it on repeat. Comment sections filled with tears, prayers, and one recurring phrase: "Faith in humanity restored." But the impact went beyond views and headlines. The following weekend, national organ donation registries reported something unprecedented: a 300% increase in new signups. Hospitals across the country cited the Family Feud episode as the reason people had chosen to become donors. What had begun as a broken rule had turned into a movement. A moment of chaos had become a catalyst for compassion. And for Steve Harvey, it became the defining moment of his career. In interviews, he spoke about it not as a host, but as a witness. "People think television's about entertainment," he said. "But sometimes, it's about something greater, about reminding us that behind every laugh and every question, there are real lives being lived." He paused, eyes distant, voice soft. "That phone wasn't supposed to ring, but I believe it was meant to." 3 months after the surgery, the Family Feud stage once again filled with cameras and applause, but this time, it wasn't for a game. When the Illington family walked back onto the stage, the audience rose to their feet in thunderous applause. And walking beside them, smiling, radiant, and healthy, was Rebecca. Steve Harvey, a man who'd weathered decades of television and millions of faces, broke down in tears before the cameras. "There she is," he said, voice trembling. "The real champion of Family Feud." Rebecca walked straight to him and hugged him tightly. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for breaking the rules." The audience wept. When Rebecca hugged Steve that day, something shifted inside everyone who witnessed it in the studio, on television, and later, across millions of screens around the world. The applause didn't sound like the usual Family Feud cheers. It was deeper, heavier, filled with awe. For once, winning had nothing to do with points on the board. In a surprise twist, both families, the Illingtons and the Thompsons, returned together for a special reunion episode. But instead of competing, they played as one team against the Family Feud crew. Steve grinned through tears as he read the first question. "We surveyed 100 people. Top answer on the board. Name something that can change your life with a single ring." Without hesitation, Rebecca pressed the buzzer. "A phone," she said. The board lit up. Number 1 answer. The audience erupted. But this time, the sound wasn't about the game. It was about gratitude. Rebecca shared her story during that episode. She spoke about the years of dialysis, the long nights hooked to machines, the hope that flickered between despair and faith. She talked about her mother, who never stopped believing, and about the doctor whose voice had come through that fateful call. "People ask me if I believe in miracles," Rebecca said, smiling softly. "I don't just believe in them, I am one." Steve, standing beside her, couldn't hold back tears. "You are, sweetheart," he said. "And you reminded all of us that sometimes the biggest miracles come disguised as interruptions." The episode became the highest-rated broadcast in Family Feud history. But more than numbers, it created ripples that no network statistic could measure. Across the country, families talked about organ donation over dinner tables. Hospitals received letters from people saying they'd signed up because of the phone that rang on Family Feud. The Illington family launched a foundation called Answer the Call, dedicated to raising awareness for organ donation and supporting families waiting for transplants. Steve became its first honorary ambassador, hosting fundraisers and speaking about the power of compassion on live television. He often said, That day reminded me why I do this. Not to make people laugh, though that's a blessing, but to remind them of what matters when the laughter stops. Years passed. Rebecca graduated high school with honors. She went to college to study medicine, inspired by the very doctors who'd saved her life. Her dream? To become a transplant surgeon, to give other families the same miracle hers had received. And she still watched Family Feud every night. "People see a game show," she once told a reporter. "I see a place where humanity showed up, where rules broke and hearts opened." Steve Harvey still keeps a framed photo in his dressing room. The Illington family running out of the studio that day, faces full of fear and hope. Beneath it, a single line is engraved in gold: "The day we got it right." When asked years later what that meant, Steve smiled. "We get caught up trying to make good television. That day, we made something better, good humanity." He paused, then added quietly, "That phone wasn't supposed to ring. But maybe it was God's way of reminding us what really matters." And so the story lives on, not as a Family Feud episode, not as viral footage, but as a lasting reminder that sometimes the most powerful moments aren't scripted. That one ring can change everything. That kindness, when chosen over rules, can save a life. The phone that wasn't supposed to ring became the call the world needed to hear. And for everyone who watched that day, it wasn't just television. It was proof that miracles still happen when people choose to answer.